Believe me, for every marital crisis, there is a legitimate need that wasn't fulfilled in a spouse by the other. Hi, this is Auntie Mary bringing biblical truths to life in relation to the family, which is the basic unit of our society. I want to acknowledge Reverend John Mahon of the Grace Community International. I learned most of these teachings from him, and they have been so helpful to me. Thank you, Uncle John. In today's video, we will be talking on the legitimate need of the husband and the wife. In my last video, I talked about this legitimate need. Follow, because it is a series. Today's video, we will be talking on the topic, the husband as the spiritual leader of the wife versus the wife as a submissive wife to the husband. I said last time that legitimate needs are needs that have been put in a man and a woman by God. And God has defined how these needs have to be met. If you entered into marriage knowing about this covenant or this legitimate need or not, know that they are still binding. God respects covenants. When you were getting married, you were entering into covenant before God with your spouse that you are going to take care of these legitimate needs. They are needs that are natural in your spouse, put there by God, and He has defined how they have to be met. So today, we will look in Ephesians chapter 5, verse 22 to 33. So God initiated and instituted marriage based on these legitimate needs. If you look in Genesis chapter 2, verse 18, God instituted marriage based on legitimate needs. That's why He said, it is not good for man to be alone. I will make a helper fit for him. So, if you as a husband, you are the head of your wife, then you have to meet this legitimate need. Looking at Ephesians chapter 5 from verse 22 to 33, we see the relationship of Christ and the church. Christ as the head of the church and how He is serving the church. So every verse that talks about Christ being the head of the church, it applies to the husband being the head of the wife. Verse 25 says, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. Going down, it says, He loved the church to the extent that He gave His life for the church. He loved the church to the extent that He wants to present the church holy, pure, sinless, and faultless to Himself. Looking at Romans 5, verse 8, it says, God demonstrates His love for us in this: while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. What a great sacrifice. When we were wayward, when we were reckless, when we did not even know anything about God, rebellious as we were, in our worst state, God still showed us love by allowing Jesus to die for us. Husbands, how much do you love your wife? Do you love your wife only when she is a good wife, or you love her during her worst moments? You love her when she is the ugliest. You love her when she does the worst things. That is the same way you have to love your wife. Just like God showed His love for us by giving Christ to die for us. You have to love her sacrificially. Love your wife just like Christ loved the church. If Christ loved the church, Christ prays for the church. So husbands, how much do you pray for your wife? They say that Christ is interceding for the church, praying to God to show mercy to the church, to forgive the church. Husbands, you have to pray that God should forgive the sins of your wife, that God should show mercy to your wife. How much time do you spend in praying for your wife? Verse 27 says, Christ uses the word to wash the church, to clean the church. John 17:17 says, Sanctify them by the truth. Your word is truth. Husbands, you have to use the word of God to cleanse your wives. You have to use the word of God to sanctify your wives. So anything you see in your wife that you don't like, look in the word of God. Remove passages there, verses there. Teach your wife the truth. So by this, it means if you are getting into the covenant of marriage, you have to be spiritually mature. Imagine your wife has gone to church. She comes back to ask you a question from the Bible and you don't give her an answer. What will she do? She will have to go out there and look for her man of God. No doubt, many women have their men of God. Husbands, you have to be spiritually mature. Know the word of God so that you'll be able to use it to sanctify, to cleanse and wash your wife and present her holy, clean, sinless and faultless before God. Because if you don't do like that, God will hold you accountable. Remember, you entered into a covenant with her before God that you will meet those legitimate needs in her. You also entered into a covenant with your spouse that you be the spiritual leader of your children. Ephesians 6:4 says, "Fathers, do not exasperate your children, but train them up in the discipline of the Lord." You have to teach your children how to pray, how to read the word of God, how to meditate on it, how to live a godly life. It is wrong for you to allow the discipline and training of your children in the hands of the pastor, the Sunday school teacher, the teacher in school, or the nanny in the house. You have to sit down, spend time on the word of God so that you will know it, understand it, and be able to teach your wife and your children. If your wife is nagging, if she is lazy, if she is extravagant, if she is a gossip, it means that you have work to do. Sit up, study the word of God, and train your wife. It is your place, it is her right that you have to train her with the word of God and cleanse her so that on that day you present her to God spotless. You don't have to trap your wife because she is a Christian. If you don't do this, who will do it? If you meet your wife sitting at the feet of another man and he is doing all these things, how will you feel? Wives, be submissive to your husband. Just like the church submits to Christ, so the wife must submit to her husband in everything. How much do you submit to your husband? Wives, are you that kind of a wife who challenge the authority of your husband? Are you that kind of a wife who is disobedient to your husband? Are you that kind of a wife who is wayward, who lives without somebody to hold you down? If you read in 1 Peter chapter 3, submission is when you accept the authority of your husband over you. It's when you accept his leadership over you. Leadership in everything. Leadership in every area. You have to accept it and allow him lead you. Allow him have that authority over you. You have to be obedient to him. You have to be kind to him. You have to be understanding with him. You have to be gentle. The women of old, they made themselves beautiful by having a gentle and a quiet spirit. That is how they adorn themselves. And God sees submission through your gentleness and quiet spirit that you have as a wife. Remember, our mother Sarah was so submissive to the husband to the extent that she called him Lord. What does Lord means? It means that you are at his command. When I say you have to be at his command, when I say you have to be under his authority, when I say you have to be submissive, it doesn't mean you don't have a point. But when you have a point, how do you pass that point? Do you pass in a challenging manner or in submission? When you are submissive to your husband, you will know it. So wives, be submissive to your husbands in everything. When you are submissive to him, you adorn yourself with beauty. You cause him to be respected in the society. You cause him to be honored by the people out there. If you don't do that, remember, there are many sisters out there right all around you, and they are very willing and ready to come in and submit to your husband. Please, Don't trap your husband because he is a Christian. If you have enjoyed this video, please stay tuned, because we will still continue with this legitimate need in our next video. Remember to subscribe, share, like, and comment. And don't forget to hit the notification button so that you will be the first to see the video. See you soon.